A client of mine wrote me recently and told me that she had had a sudden loss of one of her beloved dogs, and she wanted me to address how to work with grief. So I want to do that now, and what I'm going to suggest in terms of a releasing technique specifically that I think is helpful for grief is not just helpful for if you've lost an animal companion, but certainly any kind of loss. But I want to take a minute before I start talking about grief in general and speak about loss of animal companions. Many of us grew up in such a way that our feelings about our animals weren't validated or were thought of as strange, or even criticized for it. So we may be holding some residual belief that we've internalized on some level. Maybe we're conscious of it, maybe we're not, that kind of says something like we're not supposed to grieve as much for our animals as we do for our family members, or something like that. Even though you may say, well, I don't necessarily feel that way. You may be holding something on some level, because culturally, we still, as a species, still think of ourselves as superior to the other species for lots of different reasons. And so we often just absorb this way of thinking from our culture. So just want to remind you, if you've experienced a loss of a beloved animal companion, that it's a very legitimate loss. And also want to say that, like many other losses, it can trigger unresolved losses that you've been carrying around in your individual pain body for a long time. We aren't always supported in or given permission to, or give ourselves permission to fully grieve our losses. We are busy people, and we tend to want to get through things as quickly as we can and put it past us or forget about it, or often if a loss is a sudden loss and there are things that have to happen to take care of the humans or animals' body, there are arrangements that have to be made, and if you are the one who's responsible for doing that, you will find that you kind of have to keep it together for long enough to make those decisions and make those arrangements. And so there's this way that in having to do that and having to kind of put your feelings aside or stuff them a little bit or compartmentalize them somewhere, it will naturally, without you meaning to, it will sort of kind of abort or sidetrack the natural grief process. And that's just the way our modern lives are. So just know that you may have an accumulation of those throughout your life, and if this particular loss seems bigger, there can be many reasons for that, but one of them can be is that it triggers some older losses that are unresolved, haven't been completely worked through. So please give yourself some leeway and some compassion if that's the case. And make the time, if you can, to grieve this loss fully and through to its completion, whenever, if that's possible. And in the future, please do that whenever you can, because it means that there's not so much buildup in your system. And this buildup takes a toll on your body, on your physical body, on your health, on your nervous system, on your energetic body. So it's great when we can take the time to grieve our losses fully. And so I would say when you can, and if this is a situation that you can do this, it's great to use losses, use this tragedy, use this time. I heard Eckhart Tolle say this on a video recently, and I forgot the way he said it. He said something like, "Don't waste your suffering. Don't let it be a waste. Use it." And I think that goes for all of the things that happen to us that create feelings. But because all things can be used to heal and release like emotions from our individual pain bodies. And of course, when we do that, we help heal the collective pain body. But anytime something happens and we have a feeling about it, to the degree that we can allow ourselves to feel those feelings fully in a way that allows them to release, not feel those feelings fully in a way that has us wallowing in them and telling a victim story about them, and that's different. But allowing them to fully be experienced in our body so that they can be so that energy can be transformed is lovely. Because grief, the flip side of grief, in my experience, is compassion. Grief felt fully allows us to be more compassionate people to ourselves and to everyone else. When we experience grief and feel it fully and allow it to arise in our bodies, it breaks our hearts open. That's why we have that expression, I'm heartbroken. And when we can allow the grief to arise in such a way and allow this to break open and let it spill out and let that energy spill out and move out, it will be transformed in the light of beingness and presence. I don't mean spill out on everybody else and expect everybody else to do something for you. I mean, that's fine if people are going to be compassionate or sympathetic, but that's not really what's going to heal and transform. What's going to heal and transform is allowing it to break you open and spill out in such a way that allows it beingness, consciousness, and awareness to convert the energy, because it will. You don't have to make that happen. All you have to do is take the time and make the space inside yourself and make the space in your life to allow the energy to arise and come through you and come out of you and be transformed. And when that happens, you're typically left with something that feels like openness, love, and compassion. And it's sort of, I can't think of the right way to say it, because I've used this analogy before when I talk about building your muscle for compassion. Sometime I'm gonna, it's a better way of explaining it, a better analogy, a better way of explaining it's gonna come to me. But think of it like, if compassion and peace and love and well-being and connectedness is your true nature, and if you believe that it is or think that that's maybe possible, every time you experience it and taste it fully as pure beingness, which suffering can help you be motivated to do, because as you suffer enough and allow yourself to feel that pain and it breaks through the resistance that you have to suffering or to some layers of feelings that you've accumulated over time, when your suffering is great enough to allow that resistance and you just let it go and let these feelings and this accumulated pain come through your body, there a space is made, and what's left is your compassionate presence. And every time you taste that fully, every time you experience that fully with your beingness, it's like it gets bigger. It's like, I again, it's not like a muscle. It's like you taste it and you know. And so then it's like the pathway is made clearer between the way you normally see yourself and the truth of who you are. It's like you taste it for a moment and something you goes, yeah, this is, you may not consciously think it, but your beingness goes, yes, this is the truth of me. And every time it happens, you have sort of cleared the weeds out of the path, made the path clearer, so that it's easier to taste and experience the next time, every time you do it. So, it's a challenging thing. It's a hard thing. I've had many animal companion losses, and each time it's hard, and it's in its own way, and each time I'm amazed at the depth of love that's it opens me to, and grief done fully, in my experience, will not leave you missing the departed one as much. It's certainly normal and okay to do that because you've had this other being in your life. And, for weeks I'll notice that I still half expect to see Sophie or Brown out in the pasture or something like that. So you'll catch yourself doing that, and it'll feel odd that loved one is missing. And that's all completely understandable. And yet, the more you can allow the grief to rise up in you and feel through it and be transformed, the more you will find that you're not so much missing, because you don't so much experience a lack of them there, because there has been such a fullness created by the love that's there, and by the love and the connection that you shared. That's still in you. It's still very much alive and in you, and very much a part of who you are. And it has become part of who you are. Your connection to this one you have lost, this your connection, your love, your relationship, grew both of you in ways probably as humans we don't completely understand. But in some ways we do, but there may be ways that we don't. So we both, the one who has passed and the ones who are left, have both evolved because of our relationship and our connection to each other. And that is real and alive and will always be the case. You'll take that with you forever. And that sounds all like theory if you're still hurting and still grieving that you can't taste them, touch them, smell them, hug them. I understand that. But again, the more you can let yourself feel the grief and the layers of grief and the other feelings that might arise, the shock, any sense of feeling abandoned, any sense of feeling angry about the way that it happened. These are all legitimate feelings too, and these may be part of the grief process, and these feelings may also need to arise. But again, the more that's done, and the more that's felt and allowed to move through you and out of you, the more likely we are to reflect or think about our loved one who has passed and feel nothing but love. A smile, a tender remembrance and appreciation, and an awe, really, and a wonder at how how far-reaching, I was going to say the human heart, but not just human hearts, the human heart, but how far-reaching love is. I hope that you'll find this helpful, and I said I was going to do a release, but I got so involved in talking about the topic. Yeah, let me pause for just a second, and I'll come back and we'll do a release that might be helpful for you.